Welcome to Stock Therapy. Today I have CEO of Comstock Inc., Corrado de Gasperis. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for
You,
having me. Pleasure.
all right. So we've got an exciting day. You had a news release come out, and I would love you to first explain it to everybody exactly what we've got going on here because it looks pretty exciting.
We've been commercializing the fuel business all through the year. We had some huge announcements in August, September with commercializing internationally, but we've been working just as diligently, if not more so, close to home here in the United States. And of course, that brings us to the states that are in the wood baskets, states that have a tremendous, overly abundant amount of woody biomass. And Oklahoma, of course, is one of those states. Oklahoma is remarkably open for business because as we were engaging the state for site selections, for feedstocks, and other components relating to commercializing the site, um, they got engaged and really surprisingly fast committed $3 million to us. And those $3 million are tied to, hey, would Comstock Fuels like to headquarter themselves here? We said, absolutely. Would Comstock Fuels commit to selecting a site here and building one of these advanced biorefineries? Absolutely. And so they committed $3 million, which it's from their quick closing fund, right? It's really designed to grab great companies and ensure that they're committing to Oklahoma. But it's more than that because the state has vehicles for, low-cost financings. The state has sites, and the state has a massive amount of woody biomass that's unproductive and making certain lands unproductive, right? So we're working with them now on a number of fronts, and I think it won't only be a great starting place for us. I think it'll be a very prosperous, very exponentially growing situation. Just one thing, and this is very similar to what we would do in our first site in Oklahoma to what, let's say, SACL, is doing over in Australia or in Vietnam. We have to select a site. We have to secure the feedstock associated with that site. We have to secure offsite relating to that business. And then it has to be financed, right, at the project level. And so when people say, well, how many sites or how many projects do you have going on in the United States? Right? It's dozens, right? But dozens, it's not singularly 12 transactions, right? One of the transactions is essentially building that, and de-risking that platform. When a state like Oklahoma says, we love that, we want to do it with you, we want to partner you, we want to support you, we want to fund you, it's really gratifying. So I couldn't be prouder of the team. I couldn't be prouder of the work, but just the alignment with the state just resulted in a lot of speed, a lot of speed. So it's just the beginning, really.
Well, it was very exciting to see, and it was unexpected for me to see something this big coming through just at the end of the year. But again, I'll say this is following the pattern that you laid out for us of these contracts and these deals coming through. So I like it when people say they're going to do something and then they do it. So that's
No, it's great. Thank you.
bottom line. It's helpful.
Yeah, it gets everything. It really indicates, right? The wheels are in motion and they're moving forward. It is just the beginning. People can expect to see announcements for feedstocks, specific sites, off takes with very reputable companies, right? I think people are waiting for those. They're expecting those pieces, but now you'll be able to see it like amalgamate, consolidate into project specific, right? Then financing and funding those projects. All of those activities are way in the works, like way in the works, multiple projects. So,
Right. So would you do me a favor? And because I listen to a lot of other investors,
sure.
and would you help sort everything out for everyone as far as who's capital partners, licensees,
Sure.
locations. I think a lot of that is getting all jumbled together. And
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So look, let's simplify it and let's explain it just as you said. So we have the highest yielding, we believe lowest carbon solution on the planet. It's remarkable how much validation is happening right now, where industry leaders are telling us you're the leader in technology. Sophisticated feedstock sources are telling us you're the most, advanced and leading technology. Financiers are telling us, right? And that's a bit of a pleasant surprise. But the model is relatively simple. We want to accelerate the speed, right, at which these waste woods, this woody biomass becomes low carbon fuel. So are we willing to license it to others who are capable of doing this? Yes. Are we willing to build our own? Yes. So what does it take, just to repeat, right? For us to qualify a third party as a licensee, like SACL. They have to be knowledgeable in the biofuels industry. They understand refining, they understand biofuels, they understand feedstocks, offtakes, they've secured sites, and they can bring the capital to that site. So people are forming entities solely for this purpose. We're forming entities in Oklahoma, as an example, solely for that purpose. What does that entity have in it? A site, feedstock, offtake, financing, operations. Okay. So SACL, if we didn't license it, then it would be SACL would be Comstock Australia or Comstock Vietnam. But we're doing the same exact thing. Why not do it with partners who are ready, willing, and able? We have some companies just formed in the United States that left the ethanol industry, right? Said, hey, this is mature, this is sort of tapped out, it's got limitations in the ability to decarbonize. We can do more. Guess where they would come to us, right? So you want to license our technology, you have to have feedstock, site, offtake, financing, et cetera. SACL, we did 4 deals with already, set the standard for the industry in terms of economics. And one investor mentioned to me, well, doesn't their deal expire in at the end of December? I said, no. They are working full speed. We have updates with them tomorrow. They've got 4 projects underway. They've already publicized that they got multiple more projects identified and building of those pieces. The only thing that was due by December was definitive final agreements. We already have binding agreements. They already have the rights. They're already moving forward. So those updates will be coming, as they make their progresses. And then we'll be announcing, other projects in other states. So we are in the business of deploying these refineries, deploying these capabilities. We're in the business of licensing it to others to do the same exact thing. And then we have capital partners. So SBCC, not to be confused with SACL, sorry about that, but SBCC is essentially a banker, that has global oil and gas competency. Global oil and gas competency. Some of their bankers have operated oil and gas distribution. So they're bringing us capital, knowledgeably able to finance these kinds of projects. So all of that, pretty much everything we've talked about is progressing. It's just there is a lot happening, at the same time. To some degree, that's by design. We knew we couldn't build 200 facilities on our own quickly, right? So we want to have as many people adopting these licenses around the world as possible. And we're talking to licensees that, as you described, could be formed, super competent biofuel teams forms for just this purpose. But you're also going to hear very sophisticated brand name blue chip companies also doing the same thing. So I think when those things start to happen, people will just become more and more confident, right, as to the progress.
yeah, I think it's a beautiful way to scale, not just the environmental impact, which I realize is not key for all shareholders, but it's a big one for me. But it's a really good way to scale the impact, but also the way this license like has been set up, the license with SACL, like looking through that is truly good for investors.
Oh
It's,
yeah.
I and the rate with which you can expand and you can get so much more licensing done than you can plants built on your own, at least at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I love the format. It just means more things for everybody to keep straight in their head. But I think as
Yeah.
investors, we can be competent to do that. So,
No, thank you.
all right. Well, my next question was whether or not you had any deadlines coming up, and I think you answered that right there with the SACL paperwork. But
Yeah.
deal is done there.
Yeah, deal's done. We could
All right.
extend
Well,
it in January, and it doesn't affect an iota the speed at which they're enabling their individual site projects, right? That's their number one priority. They're going full speed ahead.
all right. Well, when do you think we'll be hearing additional information on Oklahoma? Or is this? I know news releases come out and there's information. A lot of time there's a wait between the initial and follow up and.
Yeah, not that much though. Typically, when we have material news that's definitive, we're announcing it. If I've modified anything, it's maybe there's so much more going on, right? We're doing less outlook and more just delivering work, right? And that isn't necessarily some conscious change in strategy. It's just the pipeline's full. We're busy, right? So there will be more news. Oklahoma, look, it's not a secret, right? We've committed that we want to have a site there. Is it going to be our first site? Not necessarily, but it's in the lead right now. Okay. So if we're going to have a site, then there's got to be some validation of announcing the site. There has to be some announcing of the feedstock that is going to supply the site. There's going to have to be offtake agreements with, sophisticated parties. All that's coming, time frame, all of that should occur, between now and the end of the first quarter, right? But it's like it's real time, right? There's no dates being pushed out. It's just happening real time, and then that should put us in a great position because everything I mentioned to you, the site, the feedstock, the offtake, those are all prerequisites, right, to financing the project at the project level. Technology validation, we've got nailed. So now it's just the pieces of where it's being deployed to. So all that stuff will be rolling out, in January, in February, in March, right? So that's very, very exciting. And it's a lot. It's a lot. So at the same time, you'll be hearing more licensees coming on. You'll be hearing more licensees coming on. You'll be hearing licensees coming on in the United States. You'll be hearing licensees coming on outside of the United States. It's very important that the groups are qualified. They're like SACL. They have industry experience. They know what they're doing. They've either run these companies before, they've built these companies before, they've run these plants before. It's that kind of network, for lack of a better term. The other thing that we're looking at, is there is an abundance of waste feedstocks. I think one thing that will surprise people is when we announce, the amounts of feedstocks that, are available. We're very quietly, very stealthily, locking those all up, right? It's not because there's a lot of competition for it right now. It's because we're afraid of what will happen when we start using this much wood in the future. So we want to make sure we lock these things up, going forward. But then there's also some really incredible, and we'd move into a little bit more discussion on innovations here, but there's very special, species of woody biomass that grow fast, that suck carbon out of the air, while they're growing and sink them into the ground through their roots. When those are perennial crops, right? You're cutting them off at the base, they grow right back, but that carbon stays in the ground. And it's rich carbon that you're taking to make renewable fuels with. So there's two phases of a feedstock notion. One is, what's waste, what's available. Let's utilize all that, right? Because it's there and it's very inexpensive. But let's also ensure that this oil well never stops giving, right? That it never stops giving. And so it's a two-pronged approach, I think, if you think of it that way.
So perennials, are we talking like along the lines of bamboos, or are we
Bamboo,
talking?
willows, xenograss, eucalyptus. I mean, you could even evolve into hybrid poplars, right? You're talking about that wouldn't be that would be, maybe every 3 years, every 4 years. But there's certain types of crops that will grow in difficult areas, that will grow in areas where we are not farming for food today. So, and I know this is near and dear to your heart, this is near and dear to our heart, right? Like you're creating two bioeconomies at the same time if you're advancing those things. And then it's not so much that you de-risk a site, because we de-risk the site for sure by securing whatever the sufficient feedstock is for that site. But if you now have the ability to add to that, you could cluster sites, right? Your growth could be de-risked in an even greater way. You're talking now probably, going beyond, right? 10, 15 billion type of gallons. It's a monstrous opportunity.
Right. Yeah. One thing that I think we all kind of get, and by we all, I mean investors, because we talk nonstop about the companies we're invested in, and we really get in the weeds about the deals. And when we're talking about this deal, the SBCC deal is behemoth. And I think a lot of people expect that it's just going to magically be done in one fell swoop. And I know that there's a lot that goes into that. But the
Yeah.
thing that we end up not talking about is just how solid the technology is on the fuel side. I mean, this like TRL 7, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like this is a bankable level of technology, and it kind of gets pushed to the background because we're all busy thinking about the deal. And I know most people have multipliers in their head for the share price because that's where we're focused. But don't forget the tech we're sitting on. So
Oh, for sure. And just to be precise, right? Like, when you move from TRL 6 to TRL 7, right, that's a big, big move, right? But a lot of our components, a lot of the pieces, even at TRL 6, was mature. Our digestion systems are taken right from the pulp and paper industry. They've been used for decades. They're sophisticated. They're highly effective. Hydrocracking, right? It's being used every single day in the renewable fuel and the petroleum industry. Most of what you see in our system is recognizable to somebody, certainly the engineers, right? So there's it's more mature than even you would technically rate it as a TRL. We're very disciplined with that, but financeable is the bottom line, right? So, if you can demonstrate, right, its efficacy, if you can demonstrate, that it's ready, then you bring the capital to it. That's what we're doing right now. We spent the last 3 years bringing it to that point. Now we spent the last 8 months, right, putting all the pieces together. So now you have the tech. Right now you have to integrate that platform, feedstock, site, offtake, tech, financing, take it to the finish line. Robust.
all right. Perfect. Is there anything else you want to cover on the fuel side before we take off into innovations?
No, that sounded really great. I mean, I just maybe one more shout out to Oklahoma. We're just
Yeah. No,
thrilled.
that high speed,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah. We're not thrilled about
you know,
we are thrilled about $3 million. We are thrilled about, our proximity to the first site, okay? But we're thrilled at how rich the opportunity is there for many, many, many more, right? It's a platform, right? It's a platform.
yeah, I mean, I'm from Washington State, and I'm used to these economic initiatives, especially ones that have an environmental bent to them. But I'm not used to like a quick close thing fund. That is brilliant on, on the
Yeah.
part of Oklahoma. So
And you know what the other thing about it, got both the governor and the heads of the Department of Commerce, et cetera, the philosophy that they have, there's no conflict in their minds between, renewable energy, petroleum energy, other energy. They need more energy. They know they need more energy. Why wouldn't they invest in other segments, especially the growth segments of the energy business? So we really love the way that they looked at us, right? Like energy, yeah. We want it. Yeah.
all right. Well, I'm excited to hear more about that when there's more news.